if you think of your time as water running down a mountain, if you don't have anything to catch it, it's going to cascade all over the show. And I think especially nowadays, we are bombarded with those distractions all the time from the moment we wake up. I actually downloaded an app called the Moment app onto my phone once, and it gives you a calculation of your screen time. I was horrified finding that I was spending up to 4 hours a day on my phone. And at the same time, I always felt like I didn't have enough time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like quite confused because I couldn't tell you what I was doing on my phone all day. So the thing is that there are actually tools out there, technological tools that can help us nowadays. So it's something as simple as there are people that are very obsessive around tracking their time, but I think it's something small like using an app like Harvest to track your time. So actually I spend about 2 hours a day engaging with clients. I need to up that. I spend about 3 hours a day answering emails. I need to decrease that. Or I need to get a virtual assistant to help me organize my emails. So there are so many tools nowadays that we can use to make ourselves more productive instead of just getting stuck and wasting time on platforms that we don't need to be. So there is a careful balancing act.
Is it a matter of there being too many platforms and too many opportunities for having conversations and following stuff, or is it that there are too many tools out there that sort of compete for your time?
Well, I think when it comes to platforms, we also have to ask ourselves, are we having meaningful conversations on those platforms? I actually read, and I would recommend that anyone read if they are wanting to look into how to better use their time, Deep Work by Cal Newport. I read that book last year. And I totally reevaluated my relationship with social media. And at the end of that, I stopped using Facebook. I realized that I was mindlessly scrolling on Facebook. I wasn't engaging meaningfully with anyone. I was stalking people. I was hitting like. I was not doing anything constructive. So now I still do struggle. It's an ongoing struggle for me, but I try to be very deliberate and intentional about the platforms that I'm on. So I'm on LinkedIn because it's just awesome, the kind of professional insights you can tap into.
Mhm.
People share their knowledge so freely. And I remember being very hesitant and nervous at the start to email professionals that I looked up to, and no one has ever responded negatively. People have always just been very excited to engage. I'm on Instagram because I'm a mom and I love following other mom bloggers on there. I love the way people use stories on Instagram to engage. So I think it's just about being intentional
Mhm.
and also saying, how long am I going to use this platform? How am I going to use this platform? So that you don't end up there like me with your Moment app realizing that you spent 4 hours on social media. So I do believe it's so important. I mean, we have access to a global network of professionals, opportunities now. So that is critical, that's vital. And it's just about using those opportunities and not getting stuck on the wrong types of things online.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. You know, it's for some reason I've got this little this temptation, this trend, this want to avoid using all of the tools that are available because, oh, we never had them, 20 years ago, or my parents never had them, and I wonder how many people starting out or entrepreneurs and running businesses they might enjoy the tools, but they're afraid to actually use them because, well, business has never been done this way before, as opposed to, the other half of me realizing it is a different world than it was back then. The opportunities are different. The ability to communicate is different. Do you find that people still have a reticence to adopting a lot of technology?
Well, I also just think there's also a fatigue to tools.
Mm.
I actually read a report not too long ago that people are just no longer downloading new apps. So I think if you are an entrepreneur, how do you commit to a set of tools? Because the point is that you actually can't be on all of them, and all of them might not be relevant to your business.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, if you're reading an article and it says the biggest marketing trends for 2020, one of them is live chat. And you can download live chat software for free in minutes, and you can have it up on your website as a small business.
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be a return on investment, even if it's free, just on the management or the admin that goes with that? Are
Mm-hmm.
you going to be able to man it? Is there enough need to justify it? So I think for entrepreneurs and business people, it's just a sense of, is this going to add value, or is it going to be another item on my list to manage, another app that I have on my phone that I don't open?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you are considering adding something to your technology, your marketing stack, it's all about evaluating what are your needs and how much easier is this going to make my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because I think while there are pitfalls with all of these new tools and it can be like tool overload, yes, it has made life much easier if you find the right one for your needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. I find that I'm quite a snob when it comes to a tool, and it has to look beautiful and it has to work fast. And if it can't do both, I don't have time to invest in anything. Why don't we take a few steps back? And I'd like to hear more about your story, how you got into the whole newsroom thing, and how you sort of left that. And I remember you sent me a comment or a message recently talking about the power of your own story and owning that and recognizing that it is relevant to who you're becoming and how you're approaching things. That over to you. What's your story?
Yeah, that conversation that you had with Siri really resonated with me. And yeah, so I started out in the newsroom, very excited to be a reporter, so excited to see my name in the newspaper, my byline. And I loved reporting, and I did that for 9 years.
Oh wow.
And then yeah, there was uh, an opportunity to receive an offer to work in branding and PR for government, which I accepted. And at that point, it was just for me seeing what is next. And I did that for 5 years, working in branding with a focus on economic development, tourism, technology. And yeah, after 5 years, I went back to my roots, and it's been almost 2 years now where I am a technology writer, working with clients with obviously a focus on technology and productivity, and just blogging on my own blog and learning more about writing as well.
Mm-hmm. So what inspired you to get into the news media world, like, at all? Was that something you loved doing when you were younger?
Well, I remember just always the newspaper that I worked for was called the Cape Argus, and it was a newspaper that everyone in my community had grown up with. Everyone in my family would come home. It would be a newspaper that was passed around. It was very much a part of growing up in Cape Town. And yeah, if you know anyone in Cape Town, they'll know the Cape Argus. And I was always just in awe of this paper. And yeah, I just decided to try journalism, and I actually started at a community newspaper, which was an awesome experience, and then found myself working for that very Cape Argus. So it was just something I was very passionate about. And I think most journalists do see it not as a job, but as a real calling.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's obviously there were things happening in the industry that I think a lot of us were not prepared for. Digital media, no one expected Twitter to take over news and how it influence and shape how people receive their news.
Mm-hmm.
So when I received that opportunity, I decided to see what's next. I was eager to learn more about branding and marketing and PR.
Mm-hmm. What is your take on too many questions. So we'll start with branding. What are some things that or why do you enjoy branding, and how are you doing it?
Well, I think, it was actually a book from Deborah Millman, and
Okay.
it was called Brand Thinking. And there was a quote that just stood out and connected with me, and it was that a brand is a promise. And I think we are now at a stage where that's never been more relevant. If you think about the products that you let into your life,
Mm-hmm.
your phone is almost no longer a phone when you hear something that a company is doing that doesn't jive with your values, it makes you feel uncomfortable to be associated or to support that company. So by stating that these are my values, like, especially as a business person and as an entrepreneur, that's exactly how you work with the clients that you want to work with, like those dream clients. Because you, by stating this is what I stand for, you're going to attract those like-minded people. So immediately, you know, you've done the kind of screening already by putting yourself out there. And if people find me weird, or that's me. So you automatically will only connect with those people, I feel, with your branding that are aligned to how you do business, how you see the world, and the kind of things that you want to accomplish.
That's wonderful. So,
And I think it's
yeah.
another thing that I also really liked with your conversation with Sarah was talking about how, I mean, it has become very commodified. A lot of things that people do, a lot of services that we offer nowadays, it's not really, you could say, unique or relevant, but by bringing your own story into it, you differentiate yourself and you stand out. And I think that's what people connect with more so than anything else.
So what are how is your brand unique in your space? What are your differentiators? What's your message? Your why? You know, how are you a purple cow?
Well, when I kind of was getting deeper and deeper into marketing and learning more about copywriting and the art of sales language, I came across a few sites that just made me feel so uncomfortable. It was, and I still subscribe to some of these mailing lists, but just a kind of very forceful sell onto someone. And blogs that, and I know, I mean, in copywriting, they do talk about speaking to people's pain, but to the point where it made me feel uncomfortable and things that you wouldn't want to write. And I think a responsible way of doing it is showing someone that I identify with the problem that you have right now. I know what you're struggling with, and this is what I think can help you. And I don't think it has to be easy or pushy. So that's how I do. That's how I write. That's the kind of clients that I work with are very much aligned with that. And yeah, we don't have to make people, like, scare them into working with us. It very much can be that this is a mutually beneficial relationship. And that's also what is so important about content. Every blog post you put out, every video, every LinkedIn status update is an opportunity to help someone. Like, I remember getting a comment when I was just starting out on LinkedIn, and someone said, "Wow, I learned something. I didn't know that before." And I was like, "Oh my goodness." You just feel so happy, like, wow, I actually helped someone. So that's the kind of people I work with. And yeah.
That's beautiful. How do you put your voice into your articles? Because I'm assuming you have different brands that you write for, but do you maintain a particular Bronwynnes that's common to all of them?
Well, I do have a few, I guess, peeves that when I'm reading articles, that I'm like, oh. And so when I'm writing any kind of article, I want, like, data sources to be very clearly um, articulated. People should say how they found the paper, where it's linked to. So I always try to include that in everything I write. And if you're ever using data in any blog post, I think it's just important to use it responsibly. That includes linking out back to the study, so that if I'm a small business person and I'm reading a study, I can then go back and see, actually, this was on companies that have 500 employees. It's not really relevant to what I'm doing. So in everything that I write, I'm very careful to follow that kind of style. Luckily, my clients are as well. And I actually noticed you were saying on LinkedIn how you've started bringing storytelling very strongly into your posts and into the articles that you were writing. And that's something that I'm trying to do as well, bringing in stories right at the top of what I'm writing. And I think instantly it makes it more instructive once you bring in that storytelling. So those are the common things that if I look at all my posts, I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. The data I'm very much bringing in, that's those rich stories that people can identify with.
That's brilliant. There was a book I read, this is probably a year and a half now, but it was by a group of futurists. And what they do is they get together, just a team of really creative people, to imagine what the future is going to be like based on what trends, where they're going. And companies hire them to come in and imagine what the future could be like if their company was being super progressive and using all the technology that is going to be available to them in the next decade or something. And then what they did was pretty unique. They would, instead of just giving you a set of slides or walking you through, here's the projections and here's how it's going to be, and here's what kinds of technology we're going to have available to us, they didn't do that. They turned them into stories, into
Yeah.
like mini novels, like mini stories, so that you didn't just read about stuff that was going to happen. You entered into the life of a particular person and
Yeah.
then experienced their experience of this crazy new tech and so on. And it was an amazing way to not only humanize that experience, but to instantly to ground it, and so that it felt
Mm.
relatable. And then, oh, I could see how I could use this technology, or how this would be used, because it's being put in the
Yeah.
context of either a dramatic, situation, or a very human, relatable situation. So certainly, including, like you just said, including a story, it certainly helps humanize data.
Mhm.
Why don't we wrap up then with what is one tip that you perhaps enjoy, practicing yourself, or you've seen has been really great at helping a small business, let's say, with their productivity? And I know you've already given a bunch, but what would be one good one to leave with people?
Small habits that you can do every day. If it's something like I want to write a blog post a week, if it's I want to do 2 blog posts for the month, that just sounds overwhelming if you have a small business and you have 50 other things that you need to get to on a daily basis.
Hmm.
You are you're accountant, you are doing marketing, you are a customer success champion, and now you still have to do content as well. But once you break it down and you know that, you know what, every day I'm going to spend 20 minutes on my blog, and I have a very specific process. So on day 1, I'm going to choose that idea that I've been thinking about. On day 2, I'm going to outline it. On day 3, I'm going to do a first draft. Day 4, I'll rewrite. Day 5, I'll format it. And day 6, I'll publish it.
Hmm.
It's just so much more doable. Research actually shows that these small incremental blocks of mini deadlines are actually what move us closer towards our goals.
Hmm.
So if you are a business person and you're really struggling to just eke out the time to sit down and get your blog going, just allocate 20 minutes a day, a half an hour a day, an hour a week. It can be so small, but just make sure you stick to it and just be consistent. And before you know it, you'll have a archive full of helpful content that can move your customers forward.
Right. Like Seth Godin with 7,000 articles.
Exactly. You'll be Seth Godin with 7,000 blog posts, 2 million words. And that's another thing. If we ever feel like we don't have enough time, let's remember Seth Godin, who's doing all of this in between writing 18 books and starting companies.
Yep. And proof is in the pudding. You said that you were under the weather these last couple of weeks, but you relied on this strategy to keep you going and to keep producing your content.
Yeah, it's actually the only, I mean, I haven't been on LinkedIn much, I haven't been on Medium much, and it just shows me the importance of having this process and system, because since January, I've published a blog post every single week, and that's been in between being ill myself and having 2 small kids who were ill too.
Oh.
So it just goes to show the difference it can make if you have this system, this process that just puts your content on autopilot so that you can focus on growing your business.